You could think of this as like a fully electric 3 Series. It's basically the same size, although it's got the coupe body of a 4 Series. There are 3 models you can get in Australia, starting with this eDrive35, and you can also get the eDrive40. I have driven the M50, it's all-wheel drive, twin motor, whereas the other 2, including this one, is rear-wheel drive, single motor, so the motor is at the back. This is one of those rare modern BMWs that actually looks pretty nice, unlike the rest of the range, which is... The back of it is finished off beautifully with a little boot lip there, but this is a sportback, so this whole panel does rise up like a big hatchback. You've got about 400 litres of boot space there, which is totally suitable for everyday use, except with the hatch lid, you can actually, you know, store bigger items in there. You don't have to feed them through a little gap. And you've got some little storage spots on the side there to stop things rolling around. And then underneath, another storage cavity, which has got the charging cables nicely rolled up really neatly. And then speaking of fugly, the front grills, rabbit teeth, whatever you want to call it, they're just stupid. I don't get it at all. I'm a massive BMW fan. The last 5 cars I've owned have been BMWs, but if they keep going with this sort of stuff, I'm not interested. It just looks stupid, especially on an electric car where this is not even a grille. So there's no even point of having that there at all. You've got a little intake down below there. And then up above, yeah, there's just nothing. It's just pure decorative, but it's not decoration. It's just actually making it uglier, in my opinion. I like the headlights. They've still got that traditional twin element system going from decades ago. There's a nice little side curtain thing there, and it does actually go through. And yeah, the bonnet is nice and long, as traditional sports cars, you know, with the inline 6 usually sitting under there. You can immediately tell this is the base model due to these little 18-inch wheels. I mean, they're still pretty big, but they've got the taller profile rubber on there compared with the upper spec models. 255/45s on the back. I think they're 225s on the front. Oh no, 245s on the front. So that's pretty good, nice and wide. You've got BMW's latest handle design. It's just a little very slimline package. A decent amount of space in the car. Once you sit inside, it feels sporty, hunkered down, but still spacious enough. I like how BMW are just pretty clean inside. They don't go too drastic in any particular area, except for this massive screen. Now, I don't know about you, but these huge screens, they're just a big turn-off because there's no intricacy, there's no attention to detail, apart from the graphics, which is just all done on a computer. There's no sense of mechanical engineering there at all. It's just a screen slapped on. I love how BMWs, they've always done this, or as long as I can remember. It will remember where you last were. So last time I started this car, I was in the drive settings so I could turn the lane keep assist off pretty quickly. And it remembered that. Even after driving it last night, I got back in this morning, hit this, and it had pre-selected drive settings, and then it's ready to go right there. A lot of different apps you can play around with, vehicle status and settings and all sorts of stuff. You still have BMW's iDrive controller here, which I love because you can just drive along. You don't really need to look down. Once you get used to where everything is, so you know the map's there, and it will come up straight away, then you can just use the wheel to rotate around and figure out what you want, just glancing across without actually reaching across and pushing the screen. As you can see, the screen is very dirty, or you might be able to see that on camera. Collects a lot of dust. It just looks really ugly in my opinion. You've got to wipe it down all the time. And yeah, when the car's turned off, it's just this big black panel. So it's, I don't know, I'd rather have little intricate dials and things. Back in the days, they used to use watch companies and things like that to craft, you know, really bespoke dials. Whereas these days, it's just this big digital screen. Very practical though. You've got plenty of storage, cup holders, a wireless phone charger there, huge door pockets, as is the usual case with BMWs, and a nice mixture of metallic trimmings and just black leather and some plastic. Being the base model, you know, you can't expect too much, but you can configure different colors and things like that if you want to. And there's also BMW's individual department, which you can go nuts. And yeah, option for all sorts of bespoke details. One of the most annoying things about electric cars, in my opinion, or in my experience, is you can't leave the engine running or the motor running. So as soon as I get up, take my foot off the brake pedal, it all shuts down. So I want to keep it running. I want to keep everything running. I know you can go into the air conditioning system here and leave it all running, but you've got to do that every time. And just fiddling around with things. I just want to, if I get out and leave the car running, it's because I've got out and left the car running. I don't need the car to dictate what I want and don't want. In the back, we do have a bit of a coupe roof line going on, so you've got to be careful of this panel coming down. Really duck your head down, but once you're in, it's actually pretty good. Got cup holders and an armrest, decent headroom. It does have a little divot in the ceiling, so you've got head clearance, grab handles as well, and then pockets in the back of the seat. And again, nice big door pockets. In terms of space, I do feel a little bit cramped compared with the 3 Series. The seat does sit reclined slightly, but yeah, I don't feel quite as spacious as a 3 Series. It does dip in, the seat sort of caves in a bit, the bucket's right in there, as you can see on this panel here, which is leather or leatherette, which is nice. Sometimes they just have a big plastic section there. But yeah, you do sort of sit hunkered down or pushed down in the back of the car. And then legroom, you know, I've got plenty of legroom there, but if you're a bit taller, you might find it a bit cramped. And you do have a big transmission tunnel in the middle there, so it makes it very cramped for the middle seat passenger. And it's actually quite useless in an electric vehicle because there's no tail shaft running through there. And then you've got pretty much climate control. You can change the temperature, although you can't change the fan speed by the looks of it. And you've got twin USB-C ports. But overall, like, I don't feel like I'm sitting in a letterbox. I've got reasonable view outside and I'm pretty short, so I can still see over that seal panel or the door seal, sorry, and I can see out the front a bit as well. The seats aren't too chunky, even though they are pretty sporty. I can still sort of see around either side. The main difference between this and the 40, the eDrive40, is the battery size and the power output. So this has a roughly 72 kilowatt or 71 kilowatt hour battery, whereas the 40 has an 84 kilowatt hour battery. That means the range in this is 430 kilometers on the NED cycle, and then the 40 model is around 510 on the NED cycle. I'll flash up the exact numbers now. So this doesn't go as far, but it's pretty similar in terms of performance. This produces 210 kilowatts, or the rear motor produces 210 kilowatts and 400 Newton meters, whereas the 40 produces 250 kilowatts and 430 Newton meters. BMW claims 0 to 100 in 5.7 seconds in the 40 and then 6 seconds flat in this. So there's a very fine, very small difference between the two. And with this one, you're saving about $15,000 on the new car price. So if you really don't care about that extra 0.3 of a second, although you do get a little bit more in terms of features, not too much, but a little bit more, yeah, you're better off just going with this. This is fine. Unless you're doing a lot of long distance driving, in which case you're probably not looking at an EV anyway, but if you've got a bit of a commute to work and you'd rather have that extra range, then the 40 is the pick. But yeah, if you just want to get into a electric 3 Series, as I said, there's no such thing as that in Australia at the moment, but this is the closest thing you can get to that right now. It's practical, it's fun to drive. We'll go for a drive in a minute. It feels like a BMW. It does feel a bit heavy. It is heavy, but it hides it really well, which is probably half the battle, hiding that weight. This weighs about 1,990 kilograms, whereas the 40 weighs about 2,050. So it's about 60 kilograms difference, according to Red Book data anyway, just from that slightly bigger battery. But I do love that BMW has stuck to a similar sort of formula with the petrol model. So you can get the 4 Series Grand Coupe, and it looks pretty much identical to this, apart from those front grills that are blocked off on this model. It just looks like a normal BMW. And I think that's great. I don't like the futuristic style of models that are coming out at the moment, although there's a place for those. Sometimes you just want something that's familiar, but you just want the modern technology, the modern powertrain. All right, we'll go for a drive now and see how it goes, and we'll do the performance testing as well. Out on the road, it feels like a BMW. It feels nice, it really does. The steering is communicative and you can feel what's going on. Feels mechanical. Yeah, it feels like a nice little driver's car. I've got it in Eco Pro mode at the moment, which is designed for maximum efficiency. And you got comfort and a sport mode as well. It feels very responsive being an electric vehicle, so you only need to move the throttle a bit and it just gets going straight away, and it gives you a sudden hit in the back as well. It's not super fast. I might just slow down for you and just give you a bit of a demonstration. So 40 kilometers an hour roughly, I'll floor it. Yeah, it definitely suddenly takes off. It doesn't have heaps of top end because, you know, this isn't the top model, but it definitely has excellent low down response. So it's easy to overtake and even, you know, beat people off at the lights and things like that. Good thing about electric vehicles is even when you're going up big, long, steep hills like this, you've still got plenty left in the tank. I give it some and it just keeps accelerating up the hill, whereas a petrol car, you know, it'll change down a few gears and really wind out and struggle a bit. There are no paddle shifters or anything like that, or even, you know, regen configurations. Some electric vehicles you can use the paddles to pulse through the different regeneration braking thresholds or the braking pressure. You can fiddle around with the settings in the touchscreen there. At the moment I've got it in the auto mode, which is actually really, well, it's adaptive. It's actually really good. It will, say if you're coming up to a set of lights, it knows that and it will apply some brake regen when you take your foot off the pedal. Whereas right now I'm going up a hill, if I take my foot off the pedal, it just rolls like it's in neutral and it'll just keep rolling. There's pretty much zero brake regen happening, which is great because it knows I'm going up a long hill. There's no point in slowing the car down. I've got the air conditioning on at the moment and the range says 326. If I turn the air conditioning system off, it jumps up to 354. And I think if I turn the fan off completely as well, you often get a little bit more. No, not on this one. So you can actually have the fan just blowing fresh air and it doesn't impact the range, or the range calculator anyway. But as soon as you activate the air conditioning, the range drops down. This does offer sort of fake sounds through the speakers if you want that, but you can turn it on and off. I've got it off at the moment, so when you give it some, it's just completely silent pretty much. Just hear a slight whine of the electric motor and then the wind noise obviously picks up. Activate that. This is what it sounds like. I'll slow down a bit. Even when you slow down, it's got a bit of a wind happening, a fake or artificial. So it can be good to give you that sensation of speed, to give you a bit of a reference on how fast you're going, but I don't really like it. I think if it's going to make a noise, it needs to be a petrol or diesel engine because it's natural, you know, that's what sound it's making, whereas this is just artificial, so what's the point? I'd rather just drive along and just enjoy the peace and quiet, really. So through these corners, it does feel a little bit softer than a usual sort of BMW sports car, but in saying that, that's not a bad thing because you can go for a nice drive in the country and there's no sort of compromise you need to make. Still handles very good. I'll push it a bit about in this corner. Yeah, I can feel that it is rear wheel drive. It's got that characteristic rear wheel drive feeling. You can actually kick these things sideways too. I can't show you that on camera for obvious reasons, but it will actually kick the tail out a little bit. It doesn't, you know, completely power slide. It'll sort of kick out a little bit, but then it'll drain out because it doesn't have heaps of torque. 400 Newton meters is enough, but you need to keep the engine revving, whereas an electric car, obviously you can't rev it, so it sort of just kicks out initially and then it'll stay sliding if you're, you know, on a skid pan or something like that. Going over these bumps and things, it's handling very well. I'll throw it into this corner a bit fast. There's a couple of bumps. And yeah, it's staying very stable and sure-footed. I've got full confidence in the car is grabbing the road. It feels good. It's a nice driver's car, definitely. It does feel a little bit heavier than a 3 Series, but they've done very well to try and mask that because it feels light and playful like a typical BMW. It's just if you jumped straight out of a 3 Series or a 4 Series for that matter, into this, you would notice the weight a little bit. But if you want the sporty sort of driving, or if you're really a sporty driver, I think going for the 40 is probably a bit better because it's just got that little bit more power, lower profile tyres, a bit wider as well. It is a little bit more engaging and a little bit more capable. Actually, the engagement is about the same, but it's just a bit more capable. So when you're coming out of a corner, you know, you might want a little bit more power compared with this model. But this is still, as I said, it's still very quick. It's still very responsive and punchy. It feels like a sports car. It doesn't feel like a luxury cruiser. It's got that punchy attitude about it. I like this corner around here. It's got this big bump in it. And it definitely, yeah, unsettles the car a fair bit, but that handled really well. All right, we'll head out now and do the performance test and see what it goes like.